Hey guys, how's it going? So there's a bunch of topics that I want to talk about today. But before I begin, I'd like to first say that any names that I mention here today, there's no intent on shaming these people, on bothering these people in their lives. I don't want to create an instance where now people are taking these names and information and going and harassing these people. That's not the intent. Any names of people that I mentioned today have paid their dues to society. They've paid for their crimes, and they've gone on with their lives. These people have put in an incredible amount of effort, both time consuming, painstaking effort, to go through the process of getting charges pardoned or sentences commuted. It's a great effort to do that. So, in no way is this video meant to, again, shame these people or impact them negatively in any way. I only use their names and their particular charges as a basis for the facts that I want to talk about today. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because there's some very interesting things going on right now in the mainstream media, and one of the issues going on right now is the pardon of Mr. Roger Stone, who was the former campaign manager for President Donald Trump back in 2016. Now, if you guys know more or less about Roger Stone, he was the campaign manager who was swept up in Hurricane Crossfire, which was an investigation that was headed up by the FBI, the CIA, and and the NSA, to find out if anyone in Trump's campaign, knowingly or unknowingly, were coordinating with Russian government officials. And so Roger Stone apparently was charged with lying. So he's got like 7 charges of obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and the guy was convicted on all 7 charges. Now, whether or not the charges that were brought against him were in retaliation for him not proceeding in a bogus investigation against Trump, or they were actually true, is up for debate. That's even more research, and we could go down that road another day, or if we engage each other in the comment section here, we can go over that. So he was convicted, and he was set to begin a 40-month prison sentence on the 30th of June. So as we all know, President Trump commuted that sentence, and a commutation is basically someone getting a lesser penalty than what initially was given during the conviction. And over the course of 200 years in the United States, every single president has used their pardon powers. Some pardons have been controversial, obviously, and some not so controversial. But the point is is that every single president has used their pardon powers, and some presidents, including our recent presidents, have done this hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of times during their presidency. To date, Donald Trump has only pardoned 26 people, and we'll go into some of those notable pardons in a minute. So now that we got a little bit of backstory about what's going on with Roger Stone, the reason why I decided to make this particular video today is because I'm hearing so much about, Donald Trump is abusing his presidential pardoning power, and it's a miscarriage of justice, and yada yada yada. It's very funny how our memory sort of just conveniently disappears when our energies are directed towards someone that we do not like. And so the double standard of one president can do it 15 years ago and not have any controversy, but a president now can do it, and all of a sudden it's this huge travesty and this huge miscarriage of justice and abuse of power. So with that being said, I want to just go over some facts. Now, I don't have a PhD. I'm not a history professor. I'm not majoring in history in some college. I'm not a news correspondent. I'm not a paid affiliate. None of that shit. I'm just a concerned father, American citizen that wants to mobilize on some issues if I can fucking affect some kind of change. And I think that If a group of like-minded individuals, right, mobilized on this issue and came together, then we can effect some positive change. If not change for us right now, then change for the generations that we leave behind later on down the line. We owe it to them. And what I'm seeing right now just frightens me, because the future of my children, both my 13-year-olds and my 1-year-old, is fucking threatened, man. We need to come together on this shit, man. We need to forget all of the division, come together. So the facts that I'm gonna give you today include facts, or include notable pardons from the Clinton presidency up through the Trump presidency. All of this information is verifiable. A lot of these statistics I got from our own government site. You can access this information very quickly, but what I do encourage you to do is don't just check your first link or go to your first source of information. Check any piece of information that you're particularly curious about. Check that against many different sources and sites until you can get a general idea and get a good handle and understanding of it, because that's very important. I think we kind of brush past things that we should fully begin to understand and accept and be a part of. So the reason why I want to start with some of the notable pardons from President Clinton is because me personally, I'm 35 years old, and I feel that my political maturity began around the Clinton presidency. And I say that because back in the years of the Clinton presidency, before the year 2000, former President Clinton promised that he would have a computer in every classroom in America. And at that point, I thought that was a huge deal. Computers were like an upper class commodity in homes that I got to hang out in growing up. So to hear that President Clinton was going to give 20-something kids in a classroom a fucking computer was amazing. And by the year 2000, there was a classroom in every computer, several computers in every classroom. I remember vividly. Compact Presarios, I think. Anyway, so because of things like that, I developed my political maturity. So we'll start from there, because then again, a lot of people in my age should have had that political maturity develop around the same time. So the issue here is, again, before I start, is that President Trump is abusing his presidential power. According to the mainstream media and according to the fanatics and the far left, he is doing things other presidents never did, which is complete and total horseshit. Anybody who can read a book can know that that's total horseshit. And again, we'll start with a few notables from President Bill Clinton. Now, President Bill Clinton in 1994 pardoned 41 people. This is his first year, and he went all in. He pardoned 41 people. He pardoned 41 people, including Nolan Lindemarse, who in 1983 was convicted of making false statements. He pardoned Edward Eugene Dishman, who in 1983 in Oklahoma was convicted of conspiring to defraud the United States. He pardoned Brian George Meyercord, who in 1983 in Illinois was charged with making false statements. He pardoned Jackie Lee Miller of Oklahoma, who in 1983 was charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States. He pardoned Mary Louise Oakes from Louisiana, who in 1979 was convicted of conspiring to defraud the United States. He pardoned Elizabeth Mary Peterson from Wyoming, who in 1985 was convicted of conspiring to make false statements. And a gentleman by the name of Puppy White of Missouri, who in 1985 was convicted of making false statements. Now, if you're asking why I only mentioned notable pardons, if you notice, all of these people were pardoned after being charged with making false statements. So if they're trying to pin that particular charge, or in essence that charge of lying, on Roger Stone, and then saying that by him being pardoned for that charge is this huge miscarriage of justice. Listen, it happened in 1994. Several times of the 41 people, you can see that many were pardoned for that type of crime. Okay, the following year, in 1995, former President Clinton pardoned 12 people, including Bradley Vaughn Barisick of California, who in 1980 was also convicted of making false statements. He skipped the year 1996, and the following year, 1997, he pardoned 21 people, including Giuseppe Severai from Puerto Rico, who in 1987 was convicted of obstruction of justice. Obstruction of justice is also a charge that they trumped up against Mr. Roger Stone. Following year, 1983, former President Bill Clinton pardoned 33 people. Following year, in 1999, tuned it up a bit and pardoned 38 people. But the following year, in 2000, former President Bill Clinton pardoned 110 people. 110 people. Okay? Including a gentleman by the name of Stanley Surratt, who was convicted of bribery of a public official. He pardoned Dean Ray Rush, convicted of making false statements. He pardoned George Roper II, conspiracy to bribe public officials. Okay, these are, again, people who bribe public officials, who have the resources to be in and around circles of people who have influence and power, and who can essentially have the opportunity to bribe these people. So these are the type of people that were pardoned 20 years ago, back in 2000, by one of your favorite Democratic presidents, Bill Clinton. Now, if you want to go forward, you want to include pardons by your second favorite president, George W. Bush, and that's George W. Bush, not George H.W. Bush. George W. Bush, the president who unfortunately presided over the national disaster we remember as the 9/11 September attacks. God bless every single soul from the past and present, whoever perished as a result of the attacks or later on as a result of chemical poisoning from being in and around the area surrounding the attacks. So some notable pardons from George W. Bush include the 7 people that he pardoned in 2002. Following year, in 2003, he pardoned 4 people, including David Custer Heaston of Nevada, who was convicted of making false statements in 1988 in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1001. In 2004, he pardoned 18 people, including David B. McCall Jr. of Missouri, convicted of false entry into bank books, aiding and abetting in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1006. He pardoned a gentleman by the name of Craven Wilford McLemore of Oklahoma, convicted of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. and Cato County back in 1988 in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 371. He pardoned Gerald Douglas Fike of Nebraska, who in 1992 was convicted of structuring currency transactions to evade reporting requirements in violation of 31 U.S.C. subsection 5324 and 5322, and also in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 2. Following year, George W. Bush pardoned 40 people, 2005. Including a gentleman by the name of Gary Salzberg of New Mexico, who in 1995 was convicted of theft of government property, violating 18 U.S.C. subsection 641. Excuse me. He pardoned a gentleman by the name of David Thomas Billmeyer. He was in the U.S. Air Force, and in 1979 he was convicted of making a false claim in violation of Article 132 of the UCMJ. Morris F. Cranmer Jr. of Arkansas, who in 1988 was convicted of making materially false statements to a federally insured lender in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1014. He pardoned a gentleman by the name of Jesse Ray Harvey of West Virginia, who in 1990 was convicted of property damage by use of explosives and destruction of an energy facility in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 844 and 1366. So, back in 2005, 15 years ago, A man who was convicted of property damage by using explosives to destroy an energy building was pardoned. Okay? So a guy brought up on trumped up charges for failing to participate in a fraudulent investigation is bullshit compared to the guy who was pardoned 15 years ago for blowing up a building at the risk of causing widespread injury. Following year in 2006, under former President George Bush, 44 people were pardoned, including Charles James Allen of Maryland, who in 1979 was convicted of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 371. He pardoned a man by the name of Dale Critz Jr. of Florida, who in 1989 was convicted of making false statements in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1001. Now again, the reason why I'm pointing out these particular charges is because these are essentially the same charges that are brought against Roger Stone. The same charges that he's not getting the pardon. He still gets the charges. Unfortunately, he still has to deal with the charges, but the sentence now is being commuted. Okay, fucking guy is late in age, man. A 40-month federal sentence is like a death sentence, especially in the time of COVID. Okay, now those are notable George Bush pardons. Now it goes on. In that same year, 2006, he pardoned Larry Gene Ross of Wyoming, who in 1989 was convicted of making false statements in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1014. He pardoned Gerald David Swanner of Oklahoma, who in 1991 was convicted of making false statements in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1005. The following year, in 2007, he pardoned 29 people, including John Gordon Smith, who in 1988 was convicted of making false statements to a federal agency in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1001. In 2008, George Bush pardoned 29 people, including Richard Michael Culpepper of Illinois, who in 1988 was convicted of making false statements to the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 287. 2009, there were 19 people pardoned, including Richard Harold Miller of Florida, who in 1993 was convicted of conspiracy to defraud the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 371. There were 11 commutations from 2004 to 2009, including George Bush's good friend. Guess what? A friend. Yes, Roger Stone was Trump's friend. Yes, Roger Stone was his advisor, but it's not the only time. That's why I said it's so funny how people's memories tend to work when they want it to fit a narrative. So, Scooter Libby was convicted of 1 count of obstruction of justice, 2 counts of perjury, and 1 count of making false statements to federal agents. He was pardoned. Now, Roger Stone was convicted by the United States District Court of Washington, D.C. on February the 20th, 2020 for 5 counts of making false statements to Congress, 1 count of witness tampering, and 1 count of obstruction or obstructing an official proceeding. And again, as we stated, he was sentenced to 40 months imprisonment. Okay? But again, this was an illegal investigation from the beginning. This investigation is still being investigated by William Barr and Mr. Dunn. Oh man, it gets so crazy. But I don't want to get off track here. So basically, we've established that the presidential pardon power has existed for 200 years and many presidents have used it. Some pardons have been controversial, some have not been controversial. I noted some particular pardons from the past presidents, starting with Bill Clinton, because again, personally, this is when I began to develop my political maturity, and I feel that it's relevant. We talked about some notable pardons from former President George W. Bush, and now I want to make mention of Barack Obama. Now, in total, Barack Obama pardoned or commuted the sentences of over 1,800 individuals, including over 500 life sentences. So this is a huge, huge amount of information to go through, and it would literally take me a day or two to do just that. I wanted to allow for you guys to investigate or use my information as a jump off point, so we won't waste so much time going through each individual notable pardon made by former President Barack Obama, but there are many. Not to say that each and every single one was absolutely controversial, but I mean, out of over 1,800, I'm sure that we can find many topics to discuss there. So I just want to state some facts here that I came across, and I learned that Barack Obama, by the end of his second term, which was on the January 20th, 2017, he granted executive clemency. Again, that is a pardon or commutation of sentence, which is a substitute